We're getting in breaking inputs here as we have continued to track details from the Prime Minister's meet with Jammu and Kashmir leaders here. This has now concluded. It was a meeting that lasted for a little over 3 hours. We have been getting you some inside details on what has been top of the agenda for this discussion, what was really raised in this meeting here, and also significantly marking this as the first union government meet that has happened with the Gupkar alliance since the abrogation of Article 370 in August 2019. So this meeting has now just concluded. We're trying to get in more voices here to get us further updates on all that was discussed. As far as the political parties from Jammu and Kashmir, they had made, while they had already very much clarified that they're going into this meeting with an open mind, but they had already said that they do have issues about Article 370. They also want statehood back for Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir should not be seen as a union territory. Some of this, of course, was raised in public statements before the meeting, but whether or not this was actually raised inside at the meeting today, we still need to get in those details. From the union government's part here, there was a sense that this could also take into account the ongoing delimitation process here, which has been on in Jammu and Kashmir ever since abrogation of Article 370 happened, a redrawing of constituencies within the newly formed union territory. Some of those inside details that we're now getting in. We have with us our correspondent Ayushman getting us further updates here on what more is known now. This meeting has just concluded. What more can you get us there?
Sir, right now we are standing outside the PM's residence, where behind me, my camera person will show you, the vehicles have started coming out, and first Union Home Minister Amit Shah came out, and after that the leaders of Bharatiya Janata Party, Ravinder Raina, which included Ravinder Raina and also Jitendra Singh, they came out, and continuously you can see the traffic being monitored over here. The leaders, we are being told, are also coming out. The Home Secretary also came out, who was a part of the meeting. We saw 14 leaders from Jammu and Kashmir. 14 leaders came out here in the meeting, and the meeting lasted for well more than 3 hours. The discussion over the situation of Jammu and Kashmir was discussed, but right now we are being told that the meeting has concluded.
Ayushman, and anyone spoken out so far? Of course, these are convoys of ministers and leaders that have just been zooming out from where this meeting took place. But has anyone stated anything so far post this 3.5-hour long meeting?
None so far, sir. We have been told to stay this side, and the leaders have been coming out, and they are going. Currently, the leaders who have gone out, none of them have spoken so far. And currently, we are being told that the briefing, or maybe the officials will be interacting, the leaders may be interacting, but at the Jammu and Kashmir Bhavan, where we saw Mehbooba Mufti coming out from there. But for now, they have not interacted with anyone after the meeting concluded.
All right. Could we be expecting a statement to be made then at the Jammu and Kashmir Bhavan? Of course, that is still needs to be seen here. But there's a lot more that, if not the union government, if not the, of course, senior leadership and the union ministers, but there's a lot more that the political parties from Jammu and Kashmir would want to state on what has happened in the meeting.
Well, definitely that is there on cards, sir. They would want to interact with media, and a statement is, in all likelihood, it is expected, because the political parties, be it the National Conference or the PDP, they have been maintaining that when they are going and they are talking with the government, they have got an issue of 370 in their mind, and what happened to that issue, that needs to be clarified, and in all likelihood, we are going to see some statement or the press conference from their side.
Absolutely. Ayushman, stay on with us. We're going to be getting in more voices here from this on this as well as we continue getting more details from you. There is a sense of what political parties could have raised in this meeting with the government. Do we have an understanding of what the government would like to have raised? This was believed to be a two-way dialogue process, not just listening on one part and talking from the other. What is the message that the government would have taken up here in this meeting?
Well, sir, currently we have been yet been told officially as to what was discussed and what was the point put forth by the centre. But definitely normalcy and the restoring of the electoral process in Jammu and Kashmir was something that was definitely there on cards, and that is why if you see the entire cavalcade or the entire list of the officials or the party representation that was there, it clearly means that centre is of the view that in the coming future, definitely things need to improve, and a democratically elected government needs to be formed, and that is why some way has to be carved out, and that is something which the centre has focused upon. Of course, the minor and the finer details are going to come from the centre's side and also from the political parties who represented their point. But for now, what has been discussed, what exactly has been discussed hasn't yet been told. But yes, the opposition, the parties who came from Jammu and Kashmir were of the view that abrogation of 370 was on card. Whether it has been discussed or not, that remains to be seen.
Ayushman, we've also been looking at the timing of this meeting here, and this is vis-a-vis the status of the delimitation process, which has now already been undergoing in Jammu and Kashmir. It is expected to conclude soon, and perhaps that is the reason for the timing of this meeting. You have the delimitation process concluding, which means lines have been drawn with respect to reorientation of constituencies after Jammu and Kashmir was turned into a union territory, and it would mean that it's ready for elections.
It is still too soon to say that, sir, because the delimitation process is on for over a year right now, and we have also seen the district representation at the national level, and yesterday we saw the Election Commission interacting with the officials in Delhi. We are being told that there is a definitive timeline that is, of course, there where the officials need to submit the data, because currently we have 83 constituency and that needs to go up to 90, and for that 7 new constituencies are
कम कंफ्यूजन और जो वहाँ बात इमोशनल सियासत की होती थी, इंशाल्लाह लगता है कि आगे को वो नहीं होगा। डिलिमिटेशन की बात हुई, प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने सबको कहा कि सब एसोसिएट्स के साथ हो जाइए और सब दलों को उसमें नुमाइंदगी दी जाएगी, और उन्होंने ये भी कहा कि जो ही वो कंप्लीट हो जाएगा उसके बाद ही सेकंड प्रोसेस शुरू हो जाएगी, इलेक्शन की प्रोसेस शुरू हो जाएगी। देखिए, हम लोगों की तरफ से जो हमारे लोगों को दुख और परेशानी थी वो रखी गई, प्रधानमंत्री ने खुले दिल से सुनी, और हमें लगता है कि जो आश्वासन मिला है ये आज जम्मू कश्मीर के लोगों के लिए खुशी का दिन था कि इंशाल्लाह उनकी जो मुश्किलात हैं, उनकी जो तंगियां हैं, जो उनको ग्रास रूट अपनी सरकार की तरफ जो उनकी चाहते हैं, ये पहला कदम है उसकी तरफ आगे चल के बहुत अच्छा। देखिए साहब, जहां तक बातचीत का मसला है, सब लोगों ने अपनी बात रखी, और मुझे लगता है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के दायरे में हर एक ने बात रखी। कोई ऐसी बात नहीं की गई जिसमें हमें लगा कि मुल्क के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में ही हर आदमी, कोई इमोशनल बातें वहाँ नहीं हुई है। आज कोई ऐसा इमोशनल बात नहीं किसी की तरफ से हुई है। वो सुप्रीम कोर्ट में है तो उस पर क्या बात होती है, तो बात उठाई। देखिए, दुख तो हुआ 370-35 से जिस तरीके से हटाया गया, दुख तो हुआ, उसकी शिकायत तो जरूर की लोगों ने, लेकिन जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट में है उसका तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ही फैसला करेगी। प्रधानमंत्री ने कहा ही वांटेड टू हियर द पीपल, द रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स, जो लोगों के नुमाइंदे हैं, उन्होंने कहा मैंने बहुत जल्दी इसको किया होता, लेकिन चूंकि कोविड था, कोविड करके नहीं कर सके पहले, और उन्होंने कहा जूं ये डिलिमिटेशन की प्रोसेस में सब लोग पार्टिसिपेट करिए, उसके बाद दूसरा फेज होगा इलेक्शन का, और हम लोकतंत्र बहाल करना चाहते हैं वहाँ। वही तो हिंदुस्तान की डेमोक्रेसी की ब्यूटी है। और आश्वासन यही दिया गया है कि दिस इज द रोड मैप टुवर्ड्स गोइंग टुवर्ड्स द इलेक्शन, डिलिमिटेशन कंप्लीट हो जाए, इलेक्शन हो जाए, और कहा स्टेटहुड वी आर कमिटेड, वो भी बहाल करेंगे, टाइम आने पे वो भी बहाल करेंगे।
इलेक्शंस के लिए
नहीं, अभी कोई टाइम लिमिट नहीं फिक्स किया गया। इट इज डिपेंडेंट ऑन द डिलिमिटेशन, जितना जल्दी डिलिमिटेशन हो जाए।
सरहद पार की बात कर रहे थे उन्होंने।
नहीं, आज तो हमें नहीं लगा किसी ने सरहद पार की बात की। आज तो बातें सब मुल्क की हुई, मुल्क के दायरे में हुई, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के दायरे में हुई, और खुशी की बात है कि हर एक ने अपना दर्द सुनाया, और Pradhan Mantri, he is the Prime Minister of this country and a fatherly figure also. He heard all of us. और जिसको
आपको लगता है दर्द की दवा अब शुरू हो जाएगी?
इंशाल्लाह लगता है।
जम्मू कश्मीर के सभी आए हुए नेताओं को यह विश्वास दिलाया है कि जम्मू कश्मीर के उज्जवल भविष्य के लिए सभी मिलकर कार्य करेंगे। जम्मू कश्मीर की मजबूती के लिए और जम्मू कश्मीर की जनता की भलाई के लिए हर वह कार्य करेंगे जिससे जम्मू कश्मीर के जनमानस का भला हो। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी साहब ने कहा कि जम्मू कश्मीर देश के 130 करोड़ हिंदुस्तानियों के दिल में बसता है। प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा जम्मू कश्मीर उनके अपने घर के जैसा है। उन्होंने कई वर्षों तक जम्मू कश्मीर में कार्य किया है और जम्मू कश्मीर माननीय प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी साहब ने सभी की बात सुनी और प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा जम्मू कश्मीर की भलाई के लिए, जम्मू कश्मीर की जनता की भलाई के लिए वह सभी कदम उठाएंगे जिससे जम्मू कश्मीर के जनमानस का भला हो।
चुनाव के लिए तैयार है।
क्या बोला गया? स्टेट होल्ड पे सर क्या बोला गया बता दें रविंद्र जी।
चुनाव को लेकर क्या हो सकता है?
रविंद्र जी
आइए मेरे साथ आइए। चलो।
So two voices have spoken out. One is from the Jammu and Kashmir Apni party, which is of course a very new entrant. It was a party that was formed only last year. The second voice has come in from the BJP. More reactions coming in. Let's take a listen in.
पार्टियों ने अपनी बात वहाँ पर रखी है और बड़े खुशनुमा माहौल में और सौहार्दपूर्ण वातावरण में बात हुई है और उन्होंने प्रधान
manner and I think there was a lot of emotional bonding given what has happened in the last 2 years and we came out quite positive that hopefully there will be some delivery for the people of J&K in the medium run and also in the short run.
What about the future? What did the Prime Minister say, sir?
Well, the Prime Minister, whatever he said is
सर आज की बैठक कैसी रही?
सर हिंदी में भी बता दीजिएगा सर प्लीज. But he was responsive to every single point that was raised.
Was there a point raised about speaking to Pakistan as well because PDP had expressed that?
Well, that PDP, I don't speak for PDP.
No, but was it raised in the meeting?
Madam, that you can ask her, not me.
पहले तो मैं अपने दोनों साथियों का इंट्रोडक्शन कराता हूं. मेरे बाएं दाएं तरफ से गुलाम अहमद मीर साहब हैं जो पीसीसी प्रेसिडेंट हैं, एक्स मिनिस्टर हैं और मेरे दाएं साइड तारक चंद जी हैं जम्मू से, ये एक्स डिप्टी सीएम रहे हैं कांग्रेस की तरफ से. तो आज जो मीटिंग हुई और हम तीनों ने जो कांग्रेस की तरफ से जो बात की है, बहुत सारी चीज़ें हमने बताई कि किस तरह से स्टेट डिसॉल्व हुई है, वो नहीं होनी चाहिए थी. इलेक्टेड रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स थे, उनसे पूछे बगैर किया गया. लेकिन अंत में वो तमाम चीज़ों के कहने के बाद हमने 5 बड़ी मांगें सरकार के सामने रखी. एक बड़ी मांग थी कि स्टेटहुड जल्दी देना चाहिए. हम लोगों ने ये बताया कि भाई सदन के अंदर गृह मंत्री जी ने भी और प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने भी ये आश्वासन दिलाया था हमको कि हम स्टेटहुड बहाल करेंगे एक समय पे. तो हम लोगों ने कहा कि अब समय तो आ गया है, सब इलेक्शंस वगैरह हो गए, बीडीसी डीडीसी इलेक्शन हो गए और अभी शांति भी है, सीज फायर भी है, बॉर्डर भी शांत है. तो इससे ज़्यादा कोई अनुकूल समय नहीं हो सकता स्टेटहुड ग्रांट करने के लिए. ये हमारा मांग. हम लोगों ने ये भी मांग की कि आप कहते हैं कि लोकतंत्र को मजबूत करना है. अब आपने पंचायत के इलेक्शन किए, ज़िला परिषद के इलेक्शन किए, तो ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है कि विधानसभा न हो. तो इसलिए विधानसभा का इलेक्शन भी तुरंत करना चाहिए, डेमोक्रेसी को बहाल करना चाहिए. तीसरी चीज़ हमने बताई कि बहुत बड़े ज़माने से हमारे डोमोसाइल, हिस्टोरिकली डोमोसाइल रूल्स थे। ज़मीन का तो हमारे महाराजा के ज़माने से था, 1925 के ज़माने से, और बाद में नौकरी का भी था। तो केंद्रीय सरकार को ये गारंटी देनी चाहिए कि वो भी जब बिल लाएगी तो उसके साथ हमारे ज़मीन की गारंटी, और जो लोकल मुलाजम हैं, IAS IPS वो तो आते रहेंगे, तो हर स्टेट में है, वहाँ भी आते रहेंगे, लेकिन जो एम्प्लॉयमेंट की अभी तक हमारे साथ एक सुविधा थी, वो सुविधा की गारंटी देनी चाहिए। फिर हमने कहा कश्मीरी पंडित जो हैं पिछले 30 साल से वो बाहर हैं, बहुत सारे, जम्मू में भी हैं, कश्मीर में भी हैं कुछ, लेकिन अधिकतर बहुत बड़ी संख्या जो है वो बाहर है। ये हमारी मौलिक ड्यूटी है, सरकार की तो बनती है, लेकिन जम्मू कश्मीर के हर एक राजनीतिक दल और नेता की ये मौलिक जिम्मेदारी है कि वो कश्मीर के पंडितों को वापस लाएं और उनके रिहेबिलिटेशन में जो भी हमसे हो सकेगी सरकार की सहायता करें, मदद करें कि वो कश्मीरी पंडित वापस कश्मीर में आ जाएं। और 5वां पॉइंट था कि जिस वक़्त 5 अगस्त को स्टेट के 2 हिस्से किए गए और डाउनग्रेड किया गया, उससे पहले और उसके बाद भी हज़ारों की तादाद में पॉलिटिकल प्रिजनर्स थे, वर्कर्स थे, सोशल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के लोग थे। तो उनमें से हम मिलिटेंट्स की बात नहीं करते हैं छोड़ने की, लेकिन इस तरह से जो राजनीति से जुड़े हुए लोग हैं, पॉलिटिकल प्रिजनर्स, या आपने एक डर के भय से कि भाई।
All right, 5 points that have been raised by the Congress. We're going to be revisiting all of this. Other political parties have spoken as well of what was discussed in this meeting. Stay on with us. We're back in just a bit here. We're still continuing with the focus here on inside details that we're getting you on what all that has been discussed. 14 political parties from Jammu and Kashmir in a first of its kind meeting that has taken place with the union government. Ghulam Nabi Azad of the Congress has spoken here as well, saying that the Congress party in this meeting, this was a 3.5-hour meeting, and several parties have spoken out on what was discussed. We still need to hear from the PDP and the National Conference. But the other big player here, the Congress, has said that they raised 5 points with the Prime Minister in this meeting. Let's take a listen in.
तो इसलिए हम लोगों ने कहा कि भाई अभी इतने साल से ये चल रहा है, तो उसकी वजह से लोगों को दिक्कत आता है, क्योंकि जिस तरह से पॉलिटिशियन मिलता है लोगों से, उस तरह से तो ब्यूरोक्रेट नहीं मिलेगा। तो
महबूबा मुफ्ती तो कह रही थी कि तालिबान से अगर बात हो सकती है तो पाकिस्तान से भी बात करनी
नहीं, अंदर ऐसी कोई उन्होंने बात नहीं
पर सर इस पर आपको
पॉइंट रखे हैं साहब, क्या बाकी पार्टियां भी कांग्रेस के 5 पॉइंट से एग्री हैं?
आप जब फुल स्टेटहुड की बात कर रहे हैं, इसका मतलब है कि आप एकदम साफ कह रहे हैं कि एलजी का शासन नहीं चाहिए।
हाँ, हम लोगों ने बता दिया ना, नाम लेकर बताया, गवर्नर जिसमें हो। हाँ, बाकी सबने बताया कि अगर एलजी अच्छा है तो इसी को गवर्नर बनाओ और स्टेटहुड को दे दो, प्रमोट करो।
आप लोग एलजी के काम से खुश हैं इसका?
नहीं, बाय एंड लार्ज ने कहा पॉलिटिशियन है और समझता है, पॉलिटिक्स समझता है, पॉलिटिशियन समझता है। बहुत फर्क होता अंतर में पॉलिटिशियन गवर्नर होना और नॉन पॉलिटिशियन गवर्नर होने में, लेकिन वो एक सप्लीमेंट्री चीज थी। सबका ये कहना था फुल फ्लैज स्टेट गाँव होनी चाहिए, हमारी भी वही पहली मांग थी, सबने उस पर बल दिया।
कारगिल को और लद्दाख को और इस वाला पूरा एरिया है को लेके आप लोगों ने
नहीं, देखो उसके बारे में मैंने पूछा था अपने क्वेश्चन में कि उसके बारे में बताना चाहिए, लेकिन चूंकि लद्दाख का, लेह और कारगिल का कोई रिप्रेजेंटेटिव नहीं था, तो उसका मतलब यही है कि उस बारे में अभी कोई बात नहीं करनी, बुलाया नहीं था।
ये जो आजाद साहब कांग्रेस की जो 5 डिमांड आपने बताया, बाकी और पार्टियां, कितनी पार्टियां आपसे सहमत थी? आपने
नहीं, अब मैं थोड़ी ये कहूँगा कौन मेरे सहमत थे, अंदर की बात है, लेकिन ये मेरे ख्याल में यही इन्हीं के इर्द गिर्द सब चीज थे। कोई पहला प्रायोरिटी था, कोई दूसरा था, कोई तीसरा था, लेकिन ऑलमोस्ट यही 5 चीजें थी। ऑफ कोर्स सबने अपने अपने तरीके से, हमने अपने तरीके से बात की, कांग्रेस ने कि भाई क्या क्या गलतियां की, क्या क्या आपने प्रॉमिस किए थे वो नहीं हुए। एनसी ने अपना, फारूक साहब ने अपना तजुर्बा बताया कैसे कैसे होना चाहिए था और क्यों नहीं किया, महबूबा जी ने हाल, और सब पॉलिटिकल पार्टी, लेकिन एक अच्छे वातावरण में, कोई ऐसा लड़ाई का माहौल नहीं था, क्योंकि उसका कारण था कि एक ही स्टेट के लोग हैं तो पर्सनली एक दूसरे को बहुत नज़दीक से जानते हैं, और इशू भी सबका एक ही कारण था। और मैं नहीं समझता कि ये जो 5 मुद्दे हम लोगों ने रेज किए थे, तो कोई इस पर किसी की पार्टी को आपत्ति हो, चाहे वो सत्ताधारी पार्टी हो या विपक्ष के लोग हों।
कोई और को वापस करने की मांग की या 35 को बहाल करने की मांग की किसी ने भी?
किसने? बस मैंने बताया ना, अधिकतर कुछ लोगों ने कहा, लेकिन साथ ये भी कहा कि भाई वो कोर्ट में है, अदालत में है।
आजाद साहब, क्या आगे भी कोई बैठक होगी? इसका कोई समय आज कहा गया क्या आने वाले समय में कोई और भी?
नहीं, अभी कोई चर्चा नहीं हुआ ऐसे।
सर 370 पे आपकी पार्टी में भी
चलो, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Our correspondent Ayushman is getting us further updates here. Ayushman, gradually we're getting to know each of the points that were raised by the parties. We've seen the Apna party speak out, a voice that has come in from the BJP as well. We've just heard a very detailed statement coming in from the Congress. The PDP and the National Conference, though, have still not spoken. But there is a fair sense now of what the political parties of Jammu and Kashmir raised their primary concerns, which is with respect to statehood, which is with respect to immediately having state assembly elections. But on the other end, we also know what the union government was looking at in talking about the ongoing delimitation process.
Yes, sir. In fact, sir, we also spoke to a few leaders who assured that the Prime Minister has said that once the delimitation process is complete, only then the elections will be taking place, and that would be not very far. But at the same time, on the statehood, 2 parties, the National Conference and the PDP, did raise this issue and also said, since it has been there for a long time and abrogation has taken place, their struggle will also be there for a long time. They'll keep demanding it. But the point came that the matter is in the apex court, and that's why nothing can be commented on that. But for sure, the Prime Minister said that the elections will take place as soon as the Delimitation Commission finalizes the new status the elections will be conducted on statehood. Yes, the demand was there, and that was from the Congress as well. But currently we are being told that this point was again highlighted, that this has been told in the floor of the House that it will be returned as and when the situation normalizes. But for now, the electoral process, how the electoral process can actually be there, and how the democratically elected government can be brought in place, that is something that has to be done. And once the delimitation process is completed, that will happen. That is what the Prime Minister has assured these leaders who came from Jammu and Kashmir.
Ayushman, as far as the trust deficit is concerned, following what happened after August 2019, this is with respect to political leadership that was jailed in, which was much beyond 6 to 9 months here as well, with NSA that was slapped against them. So this is something that the Congress has raised here as well, that political prisoners or activists who have been jailed since the past 2 years, the union government should reconsider in releasing them, and that would be seen as a major forward process in building up trust again.
Yes, and in fact, there is also a point which was made in the meeting, which one of the leaders who attended the meeting told that the program, something like this would have, if something like this would have taken place before the abrogation, it would have been better, because even the leaders who were there on ground in Jammu and Kashmir were left with no idea as to what was happening. And they're saying, they raised this point even in the meeting, that the Prime Minister should have called upon a meeting of this sort before the abrogation, so that they would have been taken in confidence. Nevertheless, in this meeting, they have raised this point and have also said that somewhere the need of the hour is to conduct the elections and also take people in confidence, and to which the Prime Minister said that as soon as the delimitation process is completed, the elections in the valley and in Jammu will be taking place.
Please stay on with us here, Ayushman. We're getting in more voices. In fact, I'm connected with journalist Aarti Tikku here right now. Many thanks for being with us. In your view on all that has been discussed, along what lines is what is known so far, your reaction to these big takeaways?
Well, I think it's a good step that the Prime Minister has taken. He has assured the politicians of Kashmir and some politicians from Jammu as well that democratic process is going to be restored soon. And I think that was obviously natural, because that's what the government had been saying from day one, when, since August 5th, 2019, when the state was reorganized and Article 370 was nullified. I also think that that Prime Minister Modi has made it very clear that delimitation has to take place, and all the politicians must cooperate with that. If you remember, for your audience, let me remind your audience that it was the Farooq Abdullah government that had put a bar on delimitation exercise until 2026. And the central government is going ahead with delimitation, and I think it was necessary. It was an imperative, given the demographic change in Jammu and Kashmir in the last 30 years, ever since Pakistan's cross-border Islamist jihad.
Right.
A terror disrupted the situation in Kashmir and drove out ethnic Kashmiri Pandits. So I think overall the message from the Prime Minister is very clear that 370 cannot be restored, if I am reading in between the lines. And the message is also clear that delimitation has to happen before statehood is granted. But at the same time, I have to say that it's also very unfortunate that these politicians who were responsible for the mess in Kashmir, the mess in Jammu and Kashmir in the last 70 years or so, they were brought to the table, while the people who've been, at the receiving end of the policies of these politicians in Jammu and Kashmir, they were not invited. So I'm not sure how legitimate these voices are, whether Muftis or Abdullahs.
That's right. But they, of course, have been part of the electoral process, and we're looking at 4 former chief ministers who were part of this meeting here. Talking about other issues that were touched upon here as well, domicile rules that were existing during Article 370. Some of them that had to be diluted with the repeal here, but are you in agreement that certain domicile rules as far as land ownership, as far as employment and government jobs are concerned, that should still remain? All of that has now been diluted with the repeal of Article 370. Should that be brought back as a priority for domicile?
Well, I think Home Minister Amit Shah must have done a lot of homework before making those amendments in the law. And, if you remember, there were a lot of disenfranchised groups and sections of society in Jammu and Kashmir which were deprived of their rights because of those domicile laws in J&K. And these were the politicians who had kept all those laws, discriminatory laws, intact to stay in power, and at the same time deprived so many sections of society of their fundamental rights. Those laws were discriminatory, and those laws do not exist in any other part of the country. So I think the decision that the center did take about those laws last year were correct, and I don't think those amendments need to be reversed now.
Okay. Apni Party, of course, which is a new kid in the block, so to say, a party which was formed only last year in March 2020. It was in favor in bringing back domicile rules, especially as far as government jobs are concerned. That was something that the union government had reconsidered and has partly restored here as well. But what do you think should be the other issues raised as people's issue? If you think that these are only political voices, if you think that they're not legitimate representatives of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, what should have been the other issues raised in this meeting?
Definitely the issue of ethnically cleansed Kashmiri Pandits, because that is the only and the most significant issue which remains unresolved and unaddressed. Despite the fact that so much has been done in the last 2 years, there have been development projects, there's been we did see an emergence of Apni Party. We did see young Kashmiris coming forward and talking very straightforward on their issues, whether it was employment or political activity or lack of political activity. So the only issue really remains is of Kashmiri Pandits, their return and rehabilitation. Okay. And of course, there is a certain section in Jammu who also feels disillusioned and disenchanted because of the policies of the successive governments in Jammu and Kashmir in the last 70 years. And I think those complaints also need to be addressed. But the biggest issue, of course, remains of Kashmiri Hindus. Okay. And on that issue, there has been no blueprint. There has been no roadmap. I wish and I hope Prime Minister, during his private conversation, did raise that issue on behalf of Pandits.
Right. Ms. Aarti Tikku, senior journalist, appreciate you speaking with us here on this. With that, we're also going to be playing out reactions that have come in from various political parties, all of those who were part of this meeting. We have Altaf Bukhari of the Apna Party speaking here, and also Sajjad Lone of the People's Conference. Let's take a listen in.
Held in a very, very cordial manner, and I think there was a lot of emotional bonding given what has happened in the last 2 years. And we came out quite positive that hopefully there will be some delivery for the people of J&K in the medium run and also in the short.
Some of the parties, of course, have been looking at this as a positive move because this indicates that this is now going to be a forward dialogue process. Remember, we still need to hear from the PDP as well as the National Conference. We still haven't gotten in statements from those political leadership, their leaders here. But the Congress has spoken, the Apni Party has spoken. We just got in a response from Sajjad Lone here as well. Also the BJP, Ravindra Rena had spoken here as well, looking at this meeting as very positive, also saying that the union government did discuss the delimitation process. But remember, this is something that has already been underway. Delimitation process started when Jammu and Kashmir's status changed to being a union territory, and it was split into 2 union territories, so that had triggered a delimitation process. It is also, though, expected to conclude very soon, and that could lead to fresh talks about assembly elections that need to take place for the union territory. But there are still some parties who are still pushing for a status back to statehood for Jammu and Kashmir. Stay on with us here. This continues to be the top focus. We are back in just a bit.